Midnight Motorist is a minigame from Five Nights at Freddy 6, also known as Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, with some absolutely banging music. The premise of the minigame is simple: avoid other cars and maintain a high speed to get a high score. The game is relatively short, only lasting maybe a few minutes at max, seeing as you only have 4 laps until you reach your goal. I quite enjoyed the minigame for what it was and decided to challenge myself to recreate it and make it a more complete game. The original game felt somewhat incomplete, so I decided to give my own spin on it to make it come full circle. So here's a quick rundown on how I remade Midnight Motorist from Five Nights at Freddy 6. I decided that for this game, I shouldn't deviate too far from the original. The original game had a mere 4 laps to it and then it was over. The first thing I thought to improve this was to make it more of an arcade game, seeing as in FNAF 6, Midnight Motorist is an arcade game. To do this, I decided that I would make the game infinite. Well, until the player would run out of lives. Then, at the end of the game, you're shown your score and you can replay it to try and beat it. So yeah, that's all I was really gonna add to the game. The next thing I did was create the art for the game. This didn't take too long since the resolution of the entire game would be 320 by 180, scaled up of course. And as a quick side note, the original Midnight Motorist ran at 1920 by 1080, and in comparison, here's the resolution that my recreation would be. Yep, it's pretty tiny. Anyways, along with that, the background was relatively simple, and the cars used the same sprites, just with a different colored outline. At the same time, I created the countdown that gets shown off at the start, and the lap text which flashes for a bit whenever the player completes the lap. I also decided to add scanlines in to mimic the original, but decided that this could be toggleable, cause why not? With these created, all the art assets were complete, so I moved on to actually programming the game. The first thing that was programmed was the scrolling mechanic. The way this works in the original game is that scrolling speed slowly goes up, mimicking a car's acceleration. Specifically, the scrolling increases by a lot when under 150 miles per hour and a bit slower once above 150. Then, when the player reaches the end of a lap, the camera snaps back to the beginning of the frame. Essentially, this makes it an endless loop, which is the main point of this game, as it's meant to be endless until you run out of lives. Next, I added in the countdown, which just changes values every second until it reaches go. Afterwards, it activates the scrolling and everything else. After that, I created the player car object. Like everything else so far, this was quite easy to do. All I had to do was determine what key the player was pressing and just move the car in that direction. I also added borders along each side to prevent the player from just leaving the screen. After creating the player car, it was time to create the enemy car. These would move either left or right and would move at a random speed. If the player bumped into one of these, they would spin out and have their speed reset back to 0, along with taking away one of their lives. Also, upon completing a lap, the enemy cars would be set back by a certain amount. Afterwards, I created the live system and I thought 5 would be the best for this sort of game. Creating the score system was also really easy to do. In the original game, you don't earn any score if your speed is under 150 miles per hour. So I simply made the score counter go up constantly whenever your speed was above 150. With all those mechanics out of the way, the final mechanic I added was a game over screen. Upon losing all your lives, all the music would stop and text would display saying game over. Along with this, the player's final score would be displayed. Afterwards, I took all the sounds and music from the original game and dropped them into this one. I decided afterwards to create a title screen, and for this I needed a name, but I wasn't going to call it Midnight Motorist Deluxe or something like that, since this is more of a recreation rather than an upgrade. So I decided on naming it Midnight Motorist Endless Drive, since this is more of an endurance test in comparison to the original game. Then I added some cars that would drive up in the background of the title, and a quick enter graphic to let the player know how to start up the game. I decided also that when you have at least had a high score greater than 0, it would display that on the title screen. And with that, the game was complete. I made a finished build of it and published it onto itch.io. If you want to give it a try, there's a link in the description to the page. If you enjoyed the video as well, leave a like and let me know in the comments if you have any other ideas for games or challenges. Or just let me know what your high score is. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.